Hello everyone in YouTube land. It is a sweltering hot day and I've just turned my air conditioning off, but I want to show you this. So I have my cat is in my, there she is. My cat is in my office today because it's so hot in the rest of the house. So I'm trying to save her. But this is how warm it is in my office after running the AC all day. So if I look a little disheveled and wilting, it's because I'm melting. So hopefully it's not as hot where you are. Linton said it's not quite as warm where he is. 15 would be lovely right now, Linton. I would love it. 71 sounds great, Deb. So welcome if you're just joining in for the first time. This is Digital Photo Mentor's YouTube channel. I'm Darlene. And today I'm going to edit some images that have been sent in by people like those people in the chat. So I have one of Kelly's images that I'm going to work on today. I have one of Roger's. I see Roger's here. And I think I might have one of Linton's as well if I can dig that up. But I've got a few images that I want to go through. I'm going to keep it short today because it is very hot in here. Yes, Saskatchewan, Alberta, same thing here. So yes, hoping the power doesn't go out and definitely going for supper somewhere where there's AC tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to switch over to my screen sharing. Please let me know that you can see the screen sharing. And I'm going to keep myself off camera just so that you don't see me dripping in sweat over top of the pictures. Can everybody see the picture? Just put in a yes. Awesome. Oh, Rob is reminding me I need to play our intro, so I'm going to do that. So welcome to Digital Photo Mentor, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. All right. Barbados is hot as well. Welcome, Nigel. Good to hear from you. All right, so the first one I want to do, let me hop over here. So I'm in Lightroom right now, and I just wanted to go over my workflow a little bit. So I generally use Lightroom as my main editor because I catalog all my images there, and I've been using Lightroom forever and ever. But I also use Luminar and Photoshop when necessary. Now I've got a couple of things that I'm going to do in Luminar with these images, and I don't want to give it away here, but I want to show you Kelly's image because I know that she's here. So this was a light painted image that she did, and you can see that she's done fire spinning, which is really cool. Rob, if you could find an article where we talked about fire spinning, I believe it's in the one that says 3 special effects for night photography. So fire spinning is something that is really fun, but also really dangerous. So you have to find a really good place to do it where you're not going to set anything on fire. And it looks like she's done it in some sort of a tunnel or something. So that's perfect. All right. So a couple things right off the bat, I noticed she's using lens balls here as well. So you could find that article for us as well, Rob. We've got a couple articles on how to use a lens ball, and it's really just a glass sphere. Right? And you put it in front, and what happens is it's like a lens. The image comes out inverted or upside down. So guess what I did with your image, Kelly? The first thing that came to my mind was I want to make it an optical illusion. So I inverted it and cropped it so that you just see the image in the ball, right? So I played around a little bit in terms of the color balance and things as well. But if I go back here to the original, okay, all I did was invert it, okay, like that, and then cropped it. Right? So when you do that, you end up having the image in the ball become your main image. So then after that, all I did was I increased the shadows here to plus 36, dropped the highlights, and I did that to maintain the detail in this fire. Okay, because if I put the highlights back, you can see there I'm holding the Alt Option key while I'm pressing the highlight slider. You can see that part of the fire is clipping or no detail. So I wanted to make sure I could see all of those little bits of sparkles and things. So I brought the highlights down and the shadows up and the exposure up a little bit as well. So if you see what I'll bring this up a lot more. Okay, so see what happens when I bring up the exposure, okay, and the shadows, okay. So I could go a little bit more. Now I've also added, you can add a little vignette to keep the edges dark, and I might do some cloning at the bottom to get rid of these little highlights. But it gives this optical illusion to people that you shot it this way, or when they look at it, they're not sure what they're looking at. So you kind of are tricking and playing with people's minds, which I think is a lot of fun, right? So if we could play tricks on people with our photography, why not, right? Same thing with abstracts. I did an abstract last week, which I thought was really interesting as well. So you kind of don't even know what the subject is anymore. And anytime you can create something with your photography that people aren't going to see with their eyes, like they're not going to see fire spinning, first of all, with their eyes naturally, and something that's upside down like this, they're going to be like, well, why is the ground up here, right? If you could have gotten the ball off the ground a little bit, if you have a little stand for it or something, you would have gotten less of the ball, less of the dirt in the ball, because if you look here, half the ball is ground, right? So if you could get the ball off the ground a little bit, then you might be able to get more of the actual scene in the rest of the ball. So that's kind of what you want to do. And if you take a look at that article that Rob is looking for still, I'm sure, is if you position the subject in the ball, even a cropping like that makes people think, right? So if I go back over to my edited version here, let's just give it a little more space at the bottom, okay? So even something like that, and I tilted it because I wanted to keep sort of that horizon straight, okay? So that's kind of funky. But like I said, the half the ball is taken up with the dirt, so if you can get it up higher, you'll get more of the top part of the scene. Rob, are you still looking for the article? Find one on the lens ball tips, please. So that's what I would do with that one, Kelly. Kind of fun. You might play with black and white as well. I know that it looks really great in color, but if you go black and white, you can do some really cool contrasty things, right? We can punch up the color and the texture. We can darken the edge. We can also add a radio filter, which I do a lot. Okay, so radio filter, I use the keyboard shortcut that is Shift M. Okay, so I'm keeping Rob busy finding articles here. So once you find that one, there's one on Lightroom keyboard shortcuts for you to find. And so what I'm doing inside of the radio filter here is I'm lightening the inside, right? And I might not go so much with the whites because I want to make sure I'm not clipping those highlights again. Okay, so I'm going to keep my highlights lowered. And then I'm also going to increase the texture and the clarity inside that ball, okay? Then what I can do is invert, make a duplicate. So now I have a second one. So this is a second radio filter. And I can invert it. And I just press J on my keyboard if you're wondering how I got those highlight warnings to show up. So it's J, okay? So anything blue is a clipping warning on the blacks or the shadows, and anything red is clipping on the whites, right? So I'm just mainly looking at now the outside. So I'm going to bring the highlights down and darken a little bit so we have more focus on the outside part here, or the inside part of the ball. And I can actually lower texture and clarity on this outside, right? So then what happens is, again, your eye is going to go to, I've mentioned this in previous videos, your eye is going to go to 4 things in your image. The area of most sharpness, the area of brightness, any areas of brightness, so that's why you want to tone down spots in the background, areas of high contrast, and areas of saturated or especially warm and vibrant colors, okay? The only one you're missing, Rob, is the lens ball article, or unless you posted that one already. So if you could share that one for her, that would be great. So this is something now really different than the original, right? If we go back here and we just reset this one so it's back the other way, right? The reason that I went to cropping it that way and turning it upside down is because half of this image is sort of the background, okay? So the guy spinning the fire actually becomes the background, and he's really out of focus, as is the fire. So the part that's sharp is where I want to draw attention, okay? Now I could do the same kinds of things in here. Let me just do, let's just say I'm gonna copy everything here. Right, and I'm gonna paste it, and all I'm gonna do then is put it right side up. Oops, leave it the way it is, pardon me. So I just copied and pasted the settings, and I want to do everything except the cropping. Right, let's do that. And now we have something quite different, right? So you could do a few really interesting things with this image. And if you didn't want to go full black and white, right, you could go color and then just sort of desaturate, right? Or for something fun, you could desaturate just the blues, for example. Okay, so if I want to just tone down this guy, because he's taking a lot of attention, let's just do that. So now I'm in the HSL panel. I'm on the saturation tab, and I hit this little circle here, which is a targeted adjustment tool. And it gives me this little sort of crosshairs and an up and down arrow. And wherever I click and drag, it's going to affect any of the tones that are similar to what I'm landing on with the mouse. Now I'm going to do the same thing for luminance. So I'm going to darken it. So I'm making these blues and these teals less vibrant. Okay, you see that? So there's a very different edit. All right. So I hope that gives you some ideas, Kelly. I actually kind of like the upside down black and white one, but yeah, very cool. Good job on the fire spinning, and good job on staying safe while you're spinning the fire. She's got one other image that you sent, and I just wanted to comment on this one in terms of the photography. So again, you can definitely see the location here. You can see she's inside of a tunnel, right? So you're not going to set anything on fire, which is perfect. Now, tell me if you did some lighting in there to make it purple like that, and then it looks like you've either used flash or flashlight on the trumpet player, which is also really cool that you have a trumpet player and you're light painting him. So really cool subject. Only problem with this one is he is not in focus. Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me just brighten up the whole thing a little bit. Okay, so if you can see the wall over here, sort of in front of him, is sharp, and he's not. It even looks like it's sharp sort of way back in the distance there. So it looks like it's sharp. Yeah, you can see the ground. So what I'm looking for is, where is it sharp? The ground behind him is sharp. This background is sharp, but it looks like it's sharp in front of him a little bit as well. Hard to tell, okay? Two things here. You want to be careful of, is it a long exposure? Yes, 15 seconds. So he could have moved, okay? So that's one possibility. He could have just physically moved during the exposure. So if you're doing something like this, you could actually use flash on him, and that will freeze him. And you want to make sure to focus on him ahead of time. Okay, so how you would do that is shine a flashlight or something on him, have him stand in that same place, then turn the lights off and make sure your camera is set back to either back button focus so it's locked, or turn off the autofocus if you're not sure how to do that. Sorry, there's one more article for you, Rob, the one I just did on back button focus. So she says backlight and flash, and you're using infinity in terms of, where you focused. Yeah, so focusing, find me another article, please, Rob. I'm keeping Rob busy here on light painting, because what you want to do is, shine your flashlight. Here, let me just come back on camera here for a second. So what you want to do is shine your flashlight, like, so if I'm the subject, okay, so actually let's use the cat. She looks melted, doesn't she? So if I was in a dark room, like, shine the flashlight on your subject, okay, use that to focus. Use back button focus if you can. Get that set up. I see you're using Canon, so should be fairly easy to set up. There's a video inside the article Rob's going to share on how to set up Canon. Most Canons are similar. So you want to focus on that spot. And then leave it there. Okay, so that's why the back button focus, because when you have autofocus on, the camera will try and focus when you press the shutter button, but when you switch it to back button, it separates those two functions. So the shutter button takes the picture, and then a button on the back of your camera actually does the focus. Okay, so it's great for night photography like this. And if you had set it to infinity, that's why he's out of focus. So if you have opportunity to use this model again and go back to this spot, give it another go. Let me come back over here again. The other thing that I wanted to say about this image is where the lighting is. Okay, so I can tell that the lighting on him is coming from camera. Okay, so straight from camera, which means that it's creating this shadow on him. Okay, you want to do your light painting from a different direction, right? Now, which article did you share here, Rob? There's, if you could find one on light painting, actually the light painting challenge was a good one. Playing with light at home is a good one. And the one that Matthew Cheesebrow did for us on light painting challenge. Both of those are great to learn about how to light paint from different directions and why you want to do that. All right. Getting off topic here, but cool location. Really awesome. Definitely keep shooting and practicing. And if that's a fellow you can work with again, get him out there again. So great job. All right, let's move into something a little different. And I am starting to melt. Already 28 degrees in here. Okay, so the next one is by, I don't know how to pronounce your name, and I'm sorry. I'm guessing Vietnam, and I haven't heard from this person. So, Kai Vu, as I'm pronouncing, so hopefully I'm not murdering that. So this is rice terraces, and again, I'm guessing it's Vietnam or possibly China where they have the rice terraces. All right, so what I want to do with this image is I've already done a little bit of editing, and I want to take it the next step, and I'm going to take it into Luminar. Okay, so what I've done already with this in Lightroom is I've taken it from the original, which looked like this, and I've just opened it up a little bit with some adjustments here. I've done some radial filters. Okay, so I use a radial filters a lot. And what I've done here, you could see that I'm darkening the outside. Okay, so it's centered on these little buildings over here. And this one, I'm lightening the inside. So I might even actually make that a little bigger so I can highlight sort of this farm. Okay, there has to be a focal point in your images. And if you don't have a focal point, it makes it difficult for the viewer to know where to look. Okay, so you want to make sure one of the things that I'm doing with my editing is I'm creating a focal point if there isn't one. I'm actually going to take this farther. I'm just going to show you what I'm doing with these radial filters. Okay, so can you see the outside of this radial filter? Wherever you see the green, I'm just pressing O on my keyboard to show this overlay of the tool. Okay, it's darkening the outside part. Okay, and then the same thing on this one, we're just showing on the inside. Okay, there's the green. Okay, so on the inside, I'm doing the opposite. Okay, I'm also going to add texture and clarity on the inside. So I really kind of spark up this area, right? So the outside one is obviously going too far. Let me just adjust that to a little bit more natural. So when you do your edits, okay, that's another good tip. I actually recommend taking it too far. Do that. Take it too far like I just did. And then scale it back to something that looks a little bit more believable, okay? So when I turn the radial filters off, that's what you get with the radial filters on. Can you see how it's then starting to funnel your eye into that center part of the valley and the little housing development or town, right? Okay, so now let's take a look at what else we can do. So I've got the highlights all the way to -100. And let's see, did I add a graduated filter? No. So I could also add, oh, I did. Okay, so I added a graduated filter on the sky. All right. Now, if you don't see your dots, see, I was looking for that dot, right? If you don't see your dots, if you're missing it, like I can't find my dot now, press H on the keyboard because it might be hidden. So H for hidden, all right? So once, what I did there was I just applied it to the sky. And I do believe I added a luminance filter, yes, or a luminance mask at the bottom. Okay, so all I'm doing there is just allowing the filter to apply to that top area. Sorry, my computer is now running slow. It's melting as well. Let's see here. Let me see if I can show this mask. Okay, so there's the mask. And what I did was I took it off of the oops, that's interesting. Never seen that before. Okay, I took it off of the shadows. So when you choose this range mask at the bottom here, so this is inside of the radial filter, okay, I can then have it to apply only to certain brightnesses. So I don't want it to apply to the mountains, right, which are dark. So left is dark, just like on the histogram. So as I drag this up to the right, you can see it's not applying to the mountains anymore, right? So anything that I do here is only going to apply to the sky, right? So I could actually darken the sky, lighten the sky. I could even change the color, right? If I want to give it more pink, maybe make it more sunsetty, give it a bit of yellow, right? So see how it's only affecting that top area, like that, right? And I could take it off the mountains even more. Let's go farther, just like that. So that's about as far as I would take it in Lightroom. I do find that generally, here's my difference and my preference for when to use Lightroom and when to use Luminar. I find that Lightroom is perfect for more natural edits, okay? So if I just want to do some basic edits, color correction, brightness, density, and so on, okay, I'm just going to use a JPEG here. I would normally use a TIFF. So I'm editing it in Luminar now as a plugin, okay? Then when I choose to use Luminar is when I want to get a little bit more creative, right? When I want to add a spark or an element of style, right? Rob is reminding me to share this over here. So let me just come over here and remind you to subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up. So if you're watching this live, we'd appreciate if you would do that now. And getting the image open. If you're watching the replay, thumbs up. All right, I'm just waiting for my Luminar to open. And even my Lightroom is running sluggish today because it is now 28 degrees in my office. All right. Where is my Luminar? Sorry, everyone. Let me just check over here and see if there's any questions while I'm waiting for that. Did you have any other questions, Kelly, about light painting while you're here? That's something that, you know, is quite tricky or can be quite tricky to get right with all the settings and everything. You've got your exposure now, so just work on the focus a little bit and try to get that light painting guy in sharp focus. All right, let me hop back over here. Can you see my cat melting in the background? I'm still waiting for my computer to respond. It's very hot as well. We may have to cut our session short today because everybody in this room is melting. We're going to take a break and I'll see if I can run my air conditioner again. Yeah, I'm not having much luck here, so let me just pop over here. Let's have a look at another image. This is another one I wanted to show, and this is from Danette, and I know Roger's here with his elephant, and he's eagerly awaiting that one. Right? She sent me some food images, and I just wanted to comment on these really quickly because I just did a quick edit on this one, and all I did was I brightened it up a little bit. Let's just see the original. I brightened it up a little bit, added a radial filter for that center to bring the center in brighter a little bit, edge darkening, and I cropped it quite a bit. Right, so the original, if I just undo the cropping here, oh, my computer, I'm getting the rainbow spinny wheel of death. My poor computer. Sorry, I'm not sure what's going on here. Oh, now my Luminar is going to open. Hi, Fun and games in the heat. Okay. Well, now I got Luminar, so I'm going to come back to the Vietnam image. Let me just drag this over here. All right, there we go. So adding creativity in Luminar, and I apologize for hopping back and forth here today. Adding creativity in Luminar is super easy because it does suggestions for you on the first panel. Okay, so it's suggesting some templates that it thinks might apply to the image, all right? So this one, it's chosen easy landscapes. So that's a great choice because obviously this is a landscape. So when I just sort of click through some of these, it'll give me an idea of, do I like that style and is it going to work on this image? Okay, so sunset gives me a much oranger look and so on. Oh boy, forest stream. Not having much luck. Yes, my computer is not built for for hot. No, exactly. It's an Alberta computer. It's built for winter, so it's fully insulated. Choppy. Yeah, I think it's internet. I think it's hot. I think it's everything. I'm doing my best, guys, but my computer is really struggling on all of this stuff here. Let's see if I can go back to Lightroom. All right, let's try this one and see what happens. Okay, so I just wanted to show you the cropping on this one. So the original, if I reset it, was fairly straight on. Right, she's got the cutting board angled, but I find that the picture itself, there's a lot of sort of side stuff that's not necessary. Right, if we look at the actual image, there's about a third of it here. So I would say just get a lot closer to your subject. And I rotated it a bit even more, right? Let's go this way. I rotated it so that I could sort of fit the subject in a little better into this rectangular shape. And then just let's crop a little bit off this side here. Like so. Okay, the napkin is a great addition because it sort of matches the knife and the color of the juice used, but I don't think we need so much of it. So just focus in a bit more on your actual subject. So I would just get a little bit closer when you're shooting. Right, let's see what camera. So it's a Nikon 5100, which is a crop sensor camera. Okay, she's used ISO 400, f4, 100th of a second. Now, I don't know if she's attending today. Oh, she is. Great. Did you shoot these on a tripod, Danette, is my question. I would love to know that. Because when I zoom in, they are sharp, right? It's quite sharp. But the glass itself and the juice isn't because you're shooting, straight down on it, right? And the aperture isn't going to give you enough depth of field to get that juice in focus. So when you're doing what's called a top-down shot, like this one, or a flat top, you're shooting straight down on the subject. You want to make sure that you get at least the subject in focus, and I think that's okay here in this case. I might have actually put some of the butter or jam or something on the bread to give it maybe a little bit of red on here as well, or maybe take a bite out of it. I don't know if it's a bagel or something. Okay, yeah, it is a neat image. And the other one that she sent with the food as well is this blueberry one, and I cropped it. Okay, computer's catching up. There we go. I cropped it a bit also from the original, and I cropped this one partly because I wanted to get rid of the table, the edge of the table. Right? Yes, she was using a tripod. Perfect. Yes, I'm hardwired, Rob. Right, so you can see the edge of the table and the wall and the stuff in the background here. So what I did was I just tilted this way until I could get rid of it, right? Just like that. So then I didn't have to lose any of the blueberries and the bowl. I just tilt it. Okay. The other thing I did was I just did a radial filter. I think so. Come on, Lightroom, work with me, work with me. See, even it's just everything is slow. My computer is not happy. Okay, so let's try that again. Before. We'll wait for the spinny wheel. And we'll wait. There we go. Okay, so that's the before, and all I did was add that edge vignette and the radial filters to bring that focus into the berries again. One thing I will mention while we're waiting for the computer to catch up is that when you're doing food, I think we have a couple of food articles, Rob. Maybe you could find an article on food. When you're doing food photography, you really want to have some light that brings out, now it's doing before and after, you really want to have some light that skims the food and brings out texture. Okay, so a backlight. You can even use, a flashlight or a table lamp. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, or a reflector. Okay, to bring out a bit more of the texture in the food. Okay. What I would do with those two, but keep practicing. If you enjoy shooting food, and it's a great thing to practice with because it doesn't move and you can take your time. The other thing you want to do, when I mentioned the aperture on the other one, same thing here. So you want to be careful when you place things like these berries outside of the bowl, that the front berries are not in focus. So you want to make sure where you focus is critical. Okay, so you want to focus about a third of the way into your scene, which means between the lens and sort of the last part you want in focus, because hyperfocal distance and where you're, that's a fancy term, I know. What that means is where you focus in the scene, 1/3 of your depth of field is in front of or closer to the camera, and 2/3 is behind where you focused. Okay, so if you focus, for example, here on the edge of the bowl, right, you'll get 1/3 of the scene in front of the bowl in focus and 2/3 behind. Okay, so you want to consider that where you focus, and also here, probably f8 or f11 would have been better to get the berries in focus, or simply move them. Okay, can you see where the fabric is in focus, and then it goes, it's out of focus here, goes into focus, and then out again. Okay, so just check and review your images, especially when you're doing something like this, that's a still life. Image, check the focus, zoom in to 100% on your camera, on your little LCD screen, and look for things that are in focus, because simply all you could have done here is move the blueberries back a little bit and you could have shot at the same aperture, right? But I like the idea of what you're trying to do with, styling it. You're on the right track for sure. So next, just work on a little bit of the composition and your lighting, right? Did you find that article for her on food photography, Rob? Internet. Yes, my internet has melted as well. Is it still choppy? Very little audio. I'm sorry about that, everyone. Hopefully when the stream plays back, it won't be so choppy. I'm hoping. And I'm still waiting for this to catch up. Yeah. Okay, there we go. All right, let's see if we can make something happen here. There we go. Okay, so you can see that these different templates, right, change the look of the image completely. It's suggesting landscapes, okay? I've also favorited a few that I like, and I've created a set for portraits that isn't available yet, but it will be soon. Let's just see if I can find one that I use a lot. Toscana is one that comes built in with Luminar, and it actually changes the sky. So let's see if it does that here. I don't think I would do a sky replacement on this one because it's got a decent sky already. Kelly, yeah, my computer is hot. I do this every week and it's usually not a problem, but right now with everything, I can even look at what temperature my computer is. Everything is running slow. Like even my mouse is slow to respond. So yeah, there's definitely something going on here, and I think it's just the heat for sure. So we're all melting, and it's not applying that either. So yeah, I don't know, Rob. Let's see. This is another one I've used on other landscape images. I don't know if I'm going to have any luck here at all. I'm going to cancel out of this and see if I can at least get Lightroom back to some sort of running here. Yeah, see, my mouse isn't even applying. Come on, you can do it. Cheer my computer on, everyone. All right, let's go back over here. See if I can do anything in here. All right, let's do Rogers, and we might be at the end of what we can do today. It might be a short session. If I can get that to close. Let's just do that. Okay. let's try this. So Roger sent me this image, and I'm going to show you the original. And he told me a little bit of the backstory about this elephant that I believe was at his local zoo. It had passed away after, you know, a bit after he took this photo. So he wanted to do it as a memorial to this little elephant. So I thought that was a great story. So the original image, when we go to look at it, okay, I'm just going to make a copy here. And I'm going to reset it. Okay, so now we should see the original, and you'll be able to see. So there was bars here that he was shooting through, or a fence, and it's quite overexposed. Okay, so I talked about this in the past in terms of, you know, how to know your exposure and when you're overexposed. So make sure that when you are shooting, you look for things like this where the histogram is pushed up to the right and there's a space on the left. Okay, that means your image is definitely overexposed. You could see all these bright images, the bright areas in the red, which means that part of the image is clipping. So there's not any or much detail in the background. And I'm just looking up his camera. So he's used an Olympus here camera, and I just want to see what mode. So manual mode shooting, okay, and patterned metering. All right, so the thing with manual mode is you really want to make sure that when you are shooting in manual, that you pay a close attention to your settings and where the little meter is at. I generally don't shoot manual for this kind of thing. I would shoot an aperture priority and let the camera choose the shutter speed for me. Okay, so what I decided to do, and in my discussion with Roger, he said he did the same thing, was turn the image into black and white. Now I cropped it a fair bit because I wanted to get rid of those ropes, but I also cropped out all of the stuff over on the left that was really overexposed. So I really want to focus on her eye, right? And bringing down the highlights, I brought the highlights to -67. I'm just going to undo that so you can see what it does. And I've also lowered the exposure on the overall image by about 1.5 stops. Okay, so you can see if I bring that back up that it's really quite bright, right? So I want to make sure that the elephant looks gray because elephants are gray, not white. So about there or so. And then by bringing that highlight down, this part here, the highlight slider, I can really darken that part on the left. And also this little, it looks like a piece of grass or string or something from the fence, and darken that down as well because it was really distracting. I found it very busy up in the top there. So that's another thing that I'm looking for when I'm doing editing, is I'm looking for distractions, things like the fence that could be cropped out, things that I might need to clone out, or things that I could actually just control. You can see the little grass there, or things that I can control with like a radial filter and some tone control. So a lot of the editing that I do is actually tone control. Okay, so that's what I've done there. Let's just see and take a look if I have some radial filters applied here. Come on, Lightroom, you can do it. All right. Okay, I don't think I have, but I'm going to apply one on the eye, right? So again, like I did before in the village, I can bring attention to an area by adding texture. So I'm just going to double click the word effect here, and then I'm going to add texture. Right, so texture, maybe a bit of clarity. My mouse is even slow. All right, and I might even boost the exposure on the eye a little bit more. Okay, so I really want to bring attention to the eye and also whites. Generally, when I lighten things, I want to bring the whites up because you see what the whites does? It actually brings highlights and shadows. Okay, so when I bring up, if I wanted to brighten the eye and I just did shadows here, let me show you the difference. Right, so if I just bring up the shadows, it's going to kind of punch up the eyelashes and the dark parts, but it tends to make the image or that part of it look flat. Okay, versus look what happens when I do it with the white slider. Okay, and I'm just clicking on here as opposed to dragging the slider. And exposure, okay, oops, too much. Okay, so when I do it with the whites and the exposure, you can see that I still am keeping the texture of the skin, right? I'm not flattening it. Now if I want to kind of bring it down a little more, we can do that in this area. Okay, so make sure it's blended, and I'm really now bringing attention to that eye. And I could also drag in